You know, it's been a pretty damn good March for movies. We've been looking forward to March with things like Creed, Scream, Shazam, Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, and John Wick Chapter 4. Now, we heard the initial reactions coming out of John Wick Chapter 4. And, you know, we're quite accustomed to hearing good reactions coming out of a movie. Well, not all the time, Babylon. But we're kind of used to hearing, you know, the more positive side of it coming out. But people were straight up raving in their first reactions about John Wick Chapter 4. Well, the proof is always once the actual review embargo lifts, and then we get a chance to see what's the actual critic score. Because sometimes, you know, the critic score will come in a bit lower than what those reactions were. Well, the full reviews are now out for John Wick Chapter 4. And they're every bit as stunning as they were before, as John Wick Chapter 4 right now, with 82 critic ratings, is sitting in the 90s at 93%. Now, there are a bunch of people who are fans of the John Wick franchise, like me, who are a little bit apprehensive about the near 3-hour runtime of the movie. Because, listen, the John Wick franchise is one that the cameras start, their foot goes right to the floor, and it doesn't come off until the credits roll. And that could be, we've seen some movies try to do that before, and it becomes just, even if the action is great, it becomes pretty exhausting. So there was a little bit of apprehension, a little bit of question mark whether a 3-hour runtime was the wisest move for something like a John Wick Chapter 4. But by all regards, it seems like people really kind of loved what they were seeing in it. And the reviews are now out in the 90s. Here's some of the stuff. Screen Crush saying, any one of its many set pieces contains more action all by itself than most entire movies. That's something all of us wanted to hear, because we're going into a John Wick film. We want to see the action. The Houston Chronicle, one of the top critics, writes, the John Wick franchise has always valued action over plot, visual pop over cerebral reflection. But John Wick Chapter 4 takes it all to such cartoonish extremes that it makes the previous films look like PBS documentaries.
Damn.
And they really like the film. They're like, the action is just so incredible bonkers. One of the other top critics, Movie Moms, writes, like its three predecessors, nonstop action with just enough story and character to establish the stakes and endless style. That's one of the key things that's always been a big hallmark of the John Wick films, is the style. So now, obviously, the rest of us are going to get to see this thing starting Thursday night. I know we're going to do it. We'll do our out-of-theater review once we come out of it. But I'm telling you what, even with the big, huge pop of the early reactions, I was not expecting to see critic ratings with a near 3-hour runtime in the 90s. This thing is sitting at 93%. So this is far exceeding my expectations. I was hoping it would come in like the low 80s, mid 80s. I would have been totally thrilled. For it to come in the 90s, like jaded, you know, grumpy film critics are loving John Wick Chapter 4. This is great news to me. Anyway, Chris, you're reading the reviews. What's standing out to you about the reaction and the reviews that it's getting now? And is it falling anywhere near what you were expecting?
Oh, I'm so happy it's doing well. I'm really, really happy. And I love what you just said here about these grumpy, jaded film critics, right? Because I think ultimately when we go to the movies, we want to have fun. We want to have a good time. And yes, we want great characters and great story. But to have an action movie like this, a hyper-violent, very stylized action film that is pushing that 3-hour mark, be so enjoyable the entire time. A lot of times you can get fatigued with a movie. That can feel very like stretched out, right? Maybe it can feel a little bloated. So the fact that this is coming in at that time and being really well received is very exciting. And mostly I'm just so happy that it's being well received because, you know, they announced 2 days ago that they are dedicating this film to Lance Reddick.
Yeah, who passed away on Friday. Oh.
Is so young too, 60 of natural causes, which is just, and he was so wonderful as the concierge. And I know he and Keanu Reeves had a really lovely relationship too. So honestly, that's kind of the thing that made me a little emotional hearing these reviews of just, it's so nice when a film is also dedicated to somebody that it really, really just fires on all cylinders.
As a side note, if we want to look at this thing for context and comparison's sake, in the history of the franchise, John Wick Chapter 1, all three of the John Wick films have been very well liked by the critics. All of them have.
Yeah.
John Wick 1 which surprised everybody because John Wick looked like another just throwaway movie, but it was an 86%. John Wick Chapter 2, was that one called Parabellum, or was the third? Who cares? John Wick 2 went up at an 89%. John Wick 3, which was my personal favorite of the franchise, also 89%. And now John Wick 4 is the highest critic rated of, at least so far, with 82 reviews being in. But as of right now, is the highest critically rated John Wick film at 93%. Can it hold that 90% range? There's still probably about 100 reviews to come in. I'm loving what I'm seeing. I cannot wait to see this thing on Thursday. Guys, the question is for you. What do you think about the reviews coming in? Are they what you expected? Do you think maybe after 4 films, the franchise might take a bit of a dip? Are you excited to see it? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Be smart. Don't start. Kick the habit. Put it out before it puts you out. All phrases we've heard 100 times, yet we still continue to have bad habits. And I know all of you guys completely relate with me when I say kicking bad habits feel like it's impossible. Well, thankfully, our sponsor Fume is on a mission to accelerate humanity's breakup from the bad habits that consume far too many of us. Fume is a natural diffusive device that uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. And understand, Fume is not a vape. It's a non-electronic device designed to transform your negative habits. Instead of pods filled with potentially harmful chemicals like a vape, Fume uses cores infused with plants like peppermint and cinnamon for delicious natural flavors. And Fume's new version 2 model is snappy and tactile. The easiest way to stop a bad habit is to switch to a positive one, and Fume is designed perfectly to do just that. It's Fume's goal to make switching easy and even enjoyable. They have thousands of 5-star reviews from people just like you who've successfully switched when other solutions simply don't work. So head to tryfume.com and use the code Campea to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. The Journey Pack comes with 3 unique flavors and the new version 2 Fume to help kickstart your positive habits. That's tryfum.com and use the code Campea to save an additional 10% off on your order today.